Spanish, but she comes from Uruguay. And Liuba Tupiquina, she's Russian, but she comes from Potsdam in Germany. We will be working in the LINK project on application of networks to climate and earth sciences. So there will be for a couple of months. This kind of.
Let's make it basic. You already know he's going to talk about vegetation patterns.
So, hello to everyone. Today I want to talk about a part of my PhD work. I have been working for almost two years already in this. And, well, as the title says, it's about vegetation patterns, and I will mainly focus on the role that the interactions between plants are playing in developing these kind of structures. So this work has been doing mainly with Cristobal and also with Justin from the Smithsonian in the US, and also with Emilio here as well. So I want to divide my talk into mainly two different parts. The first one is going to be a long introduction. I want to introduce the topic, and I want to know more or less what is the state of this research, and then I will show our own results. I have divided into chapters or two sections. The first one is going to be about savannas, and the other one about more arid systems where the amount of rainfall is lower. And just to finish, I will summarize with conclusions, and if I have time, I will show some work we are doing now. So just to start, why it is interesting to study vegetation patterns? Well, vegetation patterns are interesting to be studied because, first of all, they are beautiful, and we like studying beautiful things. If not, it's a bit boring. So they come, I have you here some photographs. First one is from Niger, from Israel, and this one I don't know from where it is, but it's. They are from different ecosystems, and all of them show regular structures in the vegetation, the distribution of vegetation. But it is also interesting to study them because they appear in many different ecosystems. Regardless of the kind of soil or the kind of plants, we can find vegetation structures. And I want you to take a look on how global is this, the variety of structures. In this file from Google Earth, we can see, for instance, in Niger, maybe this is the picture I took. I don't know. No, this is tiger grass. It reminds us of the skin of a tiger, but also in more different shapes. We have here another different pattern from Africa as well. But also in savannas we can find different structures, and even in marine ecosystems we can find, for instance, mussels.
Which are the typical spatial scales of these patterns?
It depends a lot on the kind of, in these structures in Africa they are made of trees, so it's tens of meters, but you can also find in Israel, for instance, in the Negev, in the desert, you can find structures which are the order of centimeters because they are done with grass. It depends on the kind of vegetation. And for instance, this one is not vegetation, but it's also a natural pattern of mussels. But I found it nice, so you can take a look at it. And well, as we have seen, they are in many places around the world. But we can have information about the kind of biological and physical processes that are taking place in the system just with this kind of models. As I will say later, we cannot have a lot of information, but still we can know something. And probably the most interesting thing is that studying the patterns, we can infer what kind of, we can know how can we minimize the effect of disturbing these ecosystems. For instance, the anthropogenic disturbance can be minimized with this, and we can also anticipate the effects of climate change because patterns can be used as an early warning signal of the system going to a desert state. This is probably one of the most important results on this research. It was published by Schaeffer and collaborators in Nature in 2009, and they show that regardless of the kind of dynamics that we have and the kind of model that we are studying, this sequence of patterns is quite universal in the sense that as far as the climate is going to a dryness state, if we reduce the amount of water that the system is receiving, we will go from a gap pattern to a more labyrinthine one, and then to a spotted one where the vegetation is just grouping spots, and finally we have a transition to a desert state. So if we are observing this kind of sequence, we will be able to know that probably the system is going to a desert state. So to study this from a theoretical point of view, there are also a lot of empirical studies on this topic, but from a theoretical point of view, the mathematical models are usually divided in two different classes. The first one are just studying the dynamics of the vegetation. So we have a differential equation for the density of vegetation, but there are also another type of models which account for the dynamics of the water coupled with the dynamics of the vegetation. I will focus mainly in these ones, but at the end of the talk, if I have some time, I want you to see how it is possible to link this one, the models studying only vegetation, to infer them from models that also account for the dynamics of water. So these deterministic models studying only the dynamics of the vegetation have some general characteristics. The first one is, they all are characterized because there is a symmetry breaking in the homogeneous state that is usually produced by some spatial interactions. And this instability, this symmetry breaking is stabilized by nonlinear terms in the equation. And this is general of all the, of many models in this topic, and they are classified mainly in three different types. The first one are showing a Turing-like stability. I will explain a bit on this, so if you are not familiar with it, don't worry. And also, it's not very important to understand the formula. So, also differential flow models and kernel-based models. I will want you to keep at least to pay attention on these ones, because these ones are we are going to build our models in basis of these ones. But as the other ones are also fun, are nice as well, Turing-like instability is very, probably most of you know it. It was, this kind of model was built up by Turing in the 50s already, and they were used to study chemical reactions. And mainly we have two species, basically, and one of them has different, they too have different diffusivities, so this difference in the diffusivity is the responsible of the emergence of patterns. The patterns that these models are going to show are stationary, so they are not time dependent. The second ones are these differential flow models, are mainly the same as the other ones, but now we have this new term, which is an advective flow, and this term is going to introduce time dependence in the patterns. The patterns are not going to be stationary, and they can have, for instance, traveling waves that are patterns that are moving on time. And finally, these kernel-based models are the ones I'm going to explain more in depth, because as I said before, we are going to build up our models in base of these ones. So, first of all, they describe the dynamics of a single.
And in this Greek term, which would be the physical or ecological meaning?
Which one? This one?
Yeah.
Well, it's connected with the.
That something is moving, or
with the water and the concentration of water, and I think, as I have read, it's connected with this. Well, these kernel-based models, in this case, we have the difference between these models and the previous one is that we only have one single equation, we have only one species, and we have a non-local term. So we will have interactions between plants not only at a local point, but also depending on a given area, no? On a given neighborhood of the plants. And what are these? How are these interactions? Well, usually it's thought that these interactions are of two different types. The first one are interactions promoting the growth of new plants that are called facilitative interactions or cooperation. And the other one are interactions that inhibit the growth of plants, and it's mainly competition for resources. No? We are in areas where the resources are not we have few resources, and plants have to compete in order to establish as a new tree and to grow up and to all these things. So these models are also used in neural systems. To those of you which are maybe more familiar with these topics, are called neural models. And the bad point of these models is that they are not well posed and they allow negative values of density to happen. Ecologists justify the use of these models, saying that ecology is plenty of not well posed models, and they just truncate it when the density is negative, and still it works for them, at least. So,
how is the justification of the no-local interactions? Because how two animals can interact no locally? How to put that?
I'm going to show actually, not right now because I'm going to show in the next slide and you will see. These two different kind of interactions are called scale-dependent feedback because at different scales, at short scale we have one kind of interaction and at long scale we have a different one. And how is this justified? Well, we have to wait a bit more. I hope you can. This is the typical equation of this kind of models. So they have a local term here, which gives the local dynamics of the vegetation at a point. This is a nonlinear function. And then we have an interaction, a term, which is the non-local term, which gives the spatial interactions. As you can see here, the dynamics of the vegetation at one point depends not only on that point, but also on the given neighborhood, which is usually defined by this function omega here. This is just a threshold, and you can put it as equal to 0, and don't look at this because it gives to a constant, and it is usually put there, but it has no lot of it. So how can we justify the non-local interaction? Well, we can justify this because when we have a single tree, and it has mainly two parts, no? It's characterized by two scales. The first scale is a short scale, which is given by the canopy of the tree, by the leaves and the green stuff. No? And the other one is much longer, and is the root length. So in empirical observations, it has been seen that water usually percolates faster where there is vegetation, and also the resources in the soil are usually accumulate where there is under the canopy of the tree, and on the other hand, the tree takes the resources from the soil using the roots. So at the scales of the roots, you have the competition radio of the tree, and at the canopy scale, you have the facilitation scale of the tree. So in the points where there is a high density of roots, it's going to be a strong competition, and in the points where there is canopy, it's going to be a mechanism facilitating the growth of new plants. So how can we put this mathematically? We can put this. Yeah.
Sorry, you don't consider multi-generational competition? I mean, you have a pool of trees and they grow and you see how they interact with each other. But you don't consider the reproduction and eventually dispersal of seeds?
Yeah, in the model we are going to introduce this. This is usually introduced here in the local dynamics. You have a growth rate, which is given by the seed production of the tree. You can have also competition for the space in order to the seed to land and to grow. And yeah, you can.
Because then in that case the scale would be much bigger.
If you introduce the seed dispersion.
Yes.
Yeah, actually in our model, I will show it now. We assume that the seed dispersal is only local. It's at a very short scale because it's when you do the mathematics, it only gives to a diffusion term, and it's not going to be relevant in the development of patterns. So I was here. So how can we put this mathematically? We put this in the kernel function omega here, that in these models takes usually this form over here. So if the density is positive, u here is positive, when the kernel function is also positive, so at a short scale, we will have positive spatial interactions and the growth of plants is going to be enhanced. No, we have a positive term to the local dynamics, which is going to make vegetation to grow much more. But, however, as we are going far away from the tree, the kernel function takes negative values, and now as the density is positive as well, we have a negative spatial interactions, and the growth of vegetation is going to be decreased by this second term. So, this is the kernel function that is usually used in these kernel-based models, and
yeah. If your competition should be, even the no local term, should it be non-linear? A product of the fields of the two positions. So taking a linear term, right? This is linear. It would be u.
Also taking into account the density in the faraway.
No. That's not it's a competition, right? So it should be
yeah.
To use.
Yeah, this is what people call competition, but Ricardo's model is no linear.
Yeah, but the model is not linear. We are accounting for this, but yeah. Actually, I think that if you put here, well, I think no, you put here this competition, you are avoiding the negative values of this model.
So log rate, which depends on the local density.
But if the local
density, your own field, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you are also putting here the density, the local density, so you have u times the integral. When the local density is 0, you don't have, and you are avoiding the negative terms here. Yeah, you should maybe.
So they are not even complete.
And probably that's why they don't use them. Yeah, I haven't thought about this yet. So I have taken this sentence from, well, as you probably have seen, most of this introduction I have taken from this reference here, and I want you to read that this sentence that says that in Turing and kernel-based models, symmetry breaking is the result of the interactions between short-range activation and long-range inhibition. That is of positive and negative feedbacks acting at different spatial states. So this is the scale-independent feedback that people usually say that is the responsible of the symmetry breaking of the homogeneous state and then of the development of patterns.
I still don't understand very well because I mean the non-local interaction basically what you were saying is due to the roots.
And to the canopy.
Well, the largest is supposed to have the root.
But
so the more roots you have, the more, I mean, if you have 2 trees, the closer they are, the better. Because the kernel is facilitated that they are close. But that means that the roots are going to be very close to each other. That's not, I mean, to misconstruct.
You have the canopy that overcomes that.
If you have 2 trees very close, what you are going to have is, well, suppose that you have to, I mean, if they are very close, you are going to overlap the facilitation scale with the competition scale. I mean, that's what I understand from your point. And
What is the facilitator?
if they are very close and the canopies are together, you are going to have somehow a very big canopy, and you are going to have facilitation on that point, and competition as well. If the competition is very strong, stronger than the facilitation, plants are not going to grow, and it's not. I mean, I don't. Maybe
the closer, I mean, the more difficult it is for them to grow, right? So, I mean, shorter distance, it translates into lower density.
Shorter distance.
Right, because if you are very close, then that inhibits the growth.
Actually, what I'm going to show you later is that the close, I mean, it's easier to establish closer than from a cluster of trees than far. So.
No, let me pose the question in a different way. The crossover, the zero value corresponds physically or biologically to what? For the kernel. This place where it goes from positive to negative, that will correspond to the canopy, to the root.
So I guess that to the end of the canopy and to the beginning of only roots. I mean, this kernel function over here is the superposition of two functions. One is like a Gaussian, positive Gaussian, like this one. And the other one is a negative Gaussian, like this one. So, when you have the superposition of these functions, you will have a net facilitation over here and a net competition over here. So, if in the situation that you are saying the competition is very strong at short scales and you have a very peaked Gaussian over here, the superposition of this function will be probably net competition at short scale.
Carlos, could it be that the scale that you decide or you take to describe is a macroscopic scale, so that a single tree does not make much importance on that scale, and then facilitation takes place at a distance which is typically of the separation between trees, that of a few meters, and competition will take place on the fact that they compete, will take place when they are very far away, so that there is a lot of one in the middle that basically they don't profit for everyone, and that's because if not, it seems that when they are very close, they should repel each other. When they are far away.
I mean, these models, yeah, you can infer this from microscopic dynamics, but they usually do like cross-grading, I mean, like
the point is, this change, the change where facilitation goes into competition is the size of a tree, is the size of a...
This is the size of the canopy. The size
is the typical size of the canopy.
of the canopy, yeah. It's the size, this size. Here. And actually the way that they justify these kernels are this one. I mean, this function is the superposition of two options. One positive and one negative.
Yeah, but this is what is confusing, right? Because if the canopies are one on top of each other, so if the overlap is large, right, so you are below this length, the kernel is facilitating the density, so increases the density. So that makes that more trees you are going to have. So that means that you have a big canopy with a lot of trees, which is not what you expect. But anyway, just keep going.
But maybe it should be negative peak at just in the middle, so it seems should be.
Yeah, of course. If you are only to have
on top of each other, but there is a distance close enough, but it's more than the canopy.
to exclude the volume of the tree mean. Yeah, to have some R potential.
I think you should proceed because we are recording the introduction.
So this concept is accepted in in the literature. There are a lot of references that based on this scale-dependent feedback in interactions, but it is still contentious. I mean, there are also a lot of works pointing in a different direction, and also if you do the linear stability analysis of the previous equation of the kernel-based equation, what you find is that the dispersion relation, I mean, the perturbation growth rate, what is going to say you if you are going to have patterns or not, depends in the interactions, but not on. I mean, only in the interactions. Not. I mean, does not say that you have to have facilitation or you have to have competition. It just says that this function over here, which is the Fourier transform of the kernel, has to have some properties. So there are also many works, empirical works, that have tried to disentangle competition from facilitation in trees, and they are very hard to. It is very hard to do it, and they have been also a lot of works measuring competition kernels. Also facilitation has been measured, and it's of course present in these systems. I mean, I'm not saying that there is no facilitation. But there are some works that start suggesting that there could be patterns without facilitation. So the question that we have in mind is, what are the minimal ingredients in a model of this kind in order to have patterns? So of course, facilitation is there, but competition is there as well. But are both of them necessary to have patterns in the system, or some of them is only superfluous? And also because, well, this spectrum of patterns that I have shown is very common in different natural systems. It's not only for vegetation. So regardless of the dynamics that you have these patterns. And what are the minimal ingredients to have them? This is the question that we have tried to answer. And this question keep to our mind with a previous work. We were working on a mean field description of savannas, starting from a microscopic model published in 2010 by Jaskin and Emilio Cristobal and Maxi as well. No, Emilio, no, sorry. And this model was a minimalistic model for savannas. It only accounted for competition and fires. I mean, it said that savannas were driven mainly by competition between trees and the effect of fires. So when when we consider this model, competition was mediated by roots that are the long-range scale we have discussed before, and fire was acting as a facilitative interaction, because in savannas, when you have like an area surrounded by adult trees, these trees are not going to burn because of fires. Only grass is burning because of fires. So these trees are acting as a shield for new trees to grow up. They are somehow protecting these juvenile trees. So we still have here competition and fires, but the fire is not at a short scale, but it's at a very short scale. It's at the local limit. It's very short scale. And in this case, we still have these patterns. We have a gap pattern here, we have stripes, and we have spots. So if still taking the facilitation to the local limit, we have patterns, what is going to happen if we just remove the facilitation from the models and study a fully competitive model? And that's what we did. So we studied semi-arid system because there is no grass there, which is going to act as fuel for fire. So there is only trees and the bare soil. No? So in these systems, the water is very scarce. There is very few rain. The rainfall is very low, and plants have to compete strongly for the water in order to grow up. And we proposed a model to study the large scale and the long time limit. So we wrote a non-local PDE like the kernel-based models with a death term at a constant rate. So trees are just dying at a constant rate alpha, and with a population growth in three steps. So the first step is seed production at a rate beta. The second step is local seed dispersion. So we have this term, which is basically the density of a binary space. And finally, the seeds have to compete with the already established trees in order to grow up. And this is this P over here, which is the probability that a given seed has to overcome competition with trees and to grow up as a new tree. So this competition over here is the non-local term, and we just said that okay, this probability of overcoming competition is a general function. This function depends on the non-local density, on the density in a given neighborhood, and on a competition strength parameter. So this function is rather general. It only has to have two properties. The first one is, well, two properties. It has to be, of course, lower than 1 because it is a probability and positive. Its derivative it has to decrease with the non-local density. So when there are more trees in the neighborhood, the probability of winning the competition is lower. And also, looking at the competition strength parameter, in the two limits, in the limit where there is no competition, this probability should be 1, and in the limit where there is a very strong competition, this probability should be 0, should vanish. So with these general remarks, we only have to fix the way that we are going to use to compute this, or to compute this non-local density, and we will have the model closed. So to define this local density, we use the same definition. Well, this is the same non-local density, of course, than in the kernel-based models, where G is the kernel function now, and rho is the density in a given neighborhood. So this function G over here is going to tell us the kind of interactions that we have. So we just choose a constant kernel because, well, for doing things simple, but we could choose here or wherever. And now with the model closed, what is the thing? The thing is that now in the model we only have competition. I mean, we don't have any mechanism which is going to enhance the development of plants, but we have the competition that is going to act in a way that is going to define areas in the space where the competition is going to be very strong. And these areas are going to be somehow forbidden for the growth of plants, and plants are going to be eliminated, are going to tend to be eliminated from them. So how does our mechanism work? Well, the mechanism of this model work. Imagine that you have two groups of trees that are separated by a distance which is longer than this interaction range here. So plants or trees which are belonging to one of the trees only have to compete, to one of the groups, have to compete with the trees that already belong to a group in order to have resources. So this tree over here has to fight for water with these all trees over here. And the same for this group. However, trees that are in between both of them are going to compete with the roots from these trees over here and with the roots from these trees over here. So the competition here is going to be much more stronger, and these trees are going to, or maybe they are going to die, and vegetation is going to cluster, no? To form clusters, to tend to form clusters. So these areas, we call them exclusion areas. Well, actually they call because this mechanism was developed in another context before I came here. So if we do the linear stability analysis of this model, well, the linear stability analysis is just we assume that the system is in the homogeneous state, and we introduce a small perturbation in the homogeneous state. A perturbation that is an harmonic perturbation. So if the rate of this perturbation is negative, which is this lambda, the perturbation is going to die, and the system is going to remain in the homogeneous state that is going to be stable. If this perturbation grows, the homogeneous state is unstable, and we will have patterns in the system. So if we do this linear stability analysis, we finally found these relations, these dispersion relationships for the perturbation growth rate. And well, if you look carefully to this expression over here, the only condition that we have to have in order to have patterns in the system is that this function over here, which is again the Fourier transform of the kernel function, has to take negative values. So the kernel function that we choose, its Fourier transform is a Bessel function that takes negative values. So you can have patterns, but you also can have patterns if you choose different kernels, and you are if they have a negative part in their Fourier transform. And what is the general? What is the thing about this? The thing is that in principle there are many functions that are positive, so they account for competition only, but whose Fourier transform is also positive, and in principle they won't lead to pattern formation in the system. But the point is that the length of the root is finite in a system. So they can extend 10 meters, 8, 9, or whatever, but they finish at some point. So if you account for this finite size in the root length, you have to truncate the kernel function. No? You have to define well competition area. You cannot just define an scale. You have to define the area. So every function that you put here, if you truncate this, it's going to have a negative part in its Fourier transform, and it's going to give growth. It's going to enhance the. I mean, you will have patterns, basically. And this is the general result. So using different functions here for the probability of overcoming competition, we have integrated the equation, and as you can see, you still have stripes and gapped patterns. And well, this is for this function over here, but you can also have this for an exponentially decaying probability of overcoming competition. And well, and also maybe some of you are now wondering why did we choose the Berg term to introduce the probability of overcoming competition. It can be also put in the depth term, just saying that the depth of trees is promoted by competition between them. So if you put the competition in the depth term, you still have patterns in the system, and also the interesting thing is if you take this is a kernel-based model that I introduced in the introduction. So if I just put in this model a kernel function that is going to give only competition, it is possible also to have patterns over here.
Now you have a workout term, additional diffusion workout that
Yeah.
we don't have before.
This diffusion, yeah. If you take out this diffusion, you have this noisy pattern. If you put the diffusion, the patterns are.
Yeah, but this term was not in the model that you were.
Yeah, but if you take this term, you still have patterns as well. Yeah. I don't know why.
No. For the PDE, that has nothing to do with the patterns are noisy or not. That's a PDE, is it? It's a continuous model.
Yeah.
So the diffusion has nothing to do with the patterns are noisy or not in the PDE.
Yeah. I don't know.
It comes from the noise on the microscopic scale.
I think that this.
I don't understand the D equals 0 and D equals 1 and.
Yeah. Well, this. I think that when you have these models, you have to they allow negative values of the density, and you have to cut them. And I know this because I have just integrated this like 2 weeks ago, and it's ongoing work. And I put this. I was also surprised because I don't understand why this pattern is like this. Because the previous models don't have diffusion and they don't have these patterns here. I don't know why. But yeah, I don't like them. So the conclusions of the work is that the message that I want you to take home is that there is, first of all, there is competition and there is facilitation in this system. But facilitation could be not necessary to have patterns, but it is still there. And as I said, this is a very important thing. The sequence of patterns is universal, but the models are system specific. So if you have a model for a given system, you can have the same patterns that in a different model. And yeah, that competition alone can be responsible of the symmetry breaking instability and lead to pattern formation through the formation of these exclusion areas where plants cannot establish. And yes, I don't know if I have time. So, as I have a very short time, I want you to know how this. There is a bit of mathematics here, so maybe it's not the best slide for the end, but I'm sorry. So, if you imagine that you have an equation, both of them local equations, one for the density of vegetation, another one for the dynamics of the water. This is just logistic growth for the vegetation and the constant depth. The depth at a constant rate that we had in our model. And we also have an equation for the dynamics of the water that accounts for, this is the water intake of the plants, this term over here. This is the water evaporation. This is the rainfall, which is a constant source of water, and this is the spreading of water in the soil. No? So if you have these two equations, the dynamics of the water is much faster than the dynamics of the trees. So you can do an adiabatic elimination of this variable here, and well, if you do the adiabatic elimination, you have to solve this equation over here. It can be done using a green function. The green function has this looks like this. And just doing a perturbation calculus of this.
Ricardo, sorry, I'm missing something. In the first equation, there is no overview. So where is the output to the overview?
Well, see, overview should be, W should be here. I'm sorry. Here.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right. It should be there. So, thank you. So if you have the water, and then we are going to plug the water.
You need the water, and the water, then you get a kernel for the distribution of the water. So how much you eliminate that?
Sorry?
You eliminate the water, and as a consequence, you get a kernel for the.
You have, yeah. You eliminate, you do, yeah, and you have here the kernel for the water. That is, I call it R because it has the same properties that the R function that we introduced before. It is positive because the green function is negative. So it is positive. It's I'm sorry. This G0 is just the integral of the green function. So it's also negative. So you have here a negative term, a negative, and another negative term. The derivative is going to be negative, and this function is positive. So it has the same properties that we impose to the R function in our form. And yeah, that's all.
Yeah, I have a very naive thought. I think that when a seed falls into the soil, it doesn't know that the trees are around or not. They will try to grow anyway. It doesn't feel the seed will penetrate the soil and will start to grow because it doesn't feel anything. It's too small to feel the roots of the other tree yet. So I think that in that case, in my opinion, the wind should play a probably more important role than the overlap between the trees that we are proposing. Because how do the seed spread in the soil? Yeah. Most probably the wind has a lot to say.
The wind throws, so to speak, throws the seed, and once it lands, it's when the interaction with the other trees it starts playing a role.
How? How does the seed?
How? Because the seed penetrates the soil. It starts growing, and if there are a lot of roots in that area, it lands. Okay. Yeah, maybe.
That's okay.
Yeah, we have it's maybe a non-Markovian process that we are going to take. We are taking Markovian or whatever. You have to take into account this maybe time.
Any other question? No?
Your statement at the very beginning that was going to be useful to monitor global change, is that a serious statement?
No, I usually I didn't want to ask as I was thinking, but yeah, of course it was serious. I mean, I was not joking. It is. Actually, I answered this question in the slide just after that. So, you mean about this? Okay.
Has that been used in practice?
It has been very used in practice because if you observe the sequence of patterns over here, if you have a system that has been like this for long years, it has this pattern over here, and you start observing this sequence of patterns, it means that this system has been suffering a decrease in the amount of water that it has been receiving in the last year. and it's going to it is tending to a dryness state, and maybe it's going to tend to a acidification state.
But for that you don't need a model.
Sorry?
To recognize that you don't need a model.
No, but you need a model to understand the mechanisms that are happening over here.
Or you need a lot of goats feeding glass.
A lot of
Goats.
to understand the mechanism.
No.
Yeah, but you can put these goals in your model as well. I mean, you can put here.
But they have nothing to do with global change.
You can put in your model a goal density.
But they have nothing to do with global change.
No, but that's why we don't have goals in our model. But it has to be, it has to be with anthropogenic disturbance. So you maybe just should take your goals to another place.
I have another question, not in such a broad context, but in the motivation that you made, you were citing this review by Borgoño, I think, or something like that, 2009. And you were saying that one of the most debated points, as I understood, is whether you need both, local enhancement or positive feedback and long-range negative feedback, or you just need one of the two. Mostly negative long-range feedback. If you understand whether you need both or just one of them. The second one is enough. So you have studied this model. My question is, to which extent do you think you have fulfilled your program or proving this or not? Which is the effect of the local dynamics? Having other types of local dynamics, other types of nonlinearities or whatever. So, do you think that this question can be answered quite in general, or you have set a particular model?
Yeah. Well, in principle, what we can know about the local dynamics is in the relation of this person here. So, in order to have patterns, in principle, the local dynamics is not very relevant because, well, first of all, as you can see here, no, it depends only on the kernel function. To have patterns of node, it depends only on the kernel function. Maybe if you have different local dynamics, yeah, you have patterns at different regimes or wherever. But in principle, I would say that.
I don't see this term, but in principle, in this lambda k, you have f prime and the derivative of the local dynamics plus the Fourier transform of the kernel. So the derivative of the local dynamics should be important.
Here.
Or not? Yeah, for instance.
Yeah, here. Here, yes, it should be.
So different forms of nonlinearities, it could be relevant, right?
But if you have, for instance, in this case, if you have local dynamics only accounts for verbs, no? Here only has I'm sorry, yeah. This function here in these models does not have, usually don't have that verb. It's only for verb, for global. So this derivative is always positive, regardless of the kind that you have, and that's why only interactions are playing the role in the global. In our case, yeah, we have if we have a very strong death, this derivative can be negative and maybe can change something. But if my thought is that if you have a stronger death than birth, the system is going to like a maybe and go.